After independence, the United States didn't settle. It spread. And what started as a fragile new nation quickly became something far more aggressive in motion, not just building, but expanding. The idea of westward expansion. There's a phrase that sounds almost innocent in history books. Westward expansion, like it was a natural movement, like people just calmly packed up and moved into empty land. But the reality was different. The land wasn't empty. It was already home to nations that had been there for centuries, and expansion didn't mean moving into space. It meant taking it, through treaties that were often broken, through pressure, through force, and sometimes through war. Indigenous displacement intensifies. As settlers pushed west, entire indigenous nations were forced into impossible choices. Sign treaties under pressure, relocate from ancestral land, or resist and face military retaliation. And resistance often came at a devastating cost. One of the darkest patterns in this era is how often land agreements were later ignored once that land became valuable. Gold, rivers, farming territory, railroads. Once the land had value, promises became flexible. And flexibility, in practice, usually meant broken promises. The Trail of Tears. One of the most infamous moments of this period was the forced relocation of indigenous peoples in the southeastern United States. Entire communities were marched west under harsh conditions. Families were separated. Winter arrived during movement for many, and thousands died along the way. It wasn't just migration. It was forced removal on a massive scale, and it left a scar that doesn't fade easily from history. Slavery expands with the economy. While the nation was expanding geographically, another system was expanding economically: slavery. And it became deeply tied to one crop in particular: cotton. Cotton wasn't just agriculture. It was industry. It powered textile factories, both in the United States and abroad. And the demand for it reshaped entire regions. The plantation system. In the southern states, large plantations dominated land and labor. These weren't small farms. They were massive operations built on forced labor. And the system was self-reinforcing. More cotton demand, more land needed. More land, more labor required. More labor, deeper reliance on slavery. It became an economic engine that many depended on, and therefore many defended. Even when morally and humanly, it was becoming increasingly difficult to justify. A nation split in two ideas. By the 1800s, the United States wasn't just growing, it was dividing internally. Two major systems were developing: the industrial North, the agricultural slave South. Both relied on different labor systems, economies, and worldviews, and both were tied to political power. The question of slavery wasn't just moral anymore, it was structural. If one side changed, the entire balance of the nation would shift. Tension in the air. Political arguments became more intense. Every new state added to the country raised the same question: will it allow slavery or not? Because that decision affected power in government, and neither side wanted to lose influence. So compromise after compromise was made, but each compromise didn't solve the problem. It only delayed it. And pressure builds when problems are only delayed, not solved. Human stories behind the system. Behind all the political debate, there were real human lives inside the system. Families separated permanently. Children born into slavery with no legal identity of freedom. People resisting in quiet, dangerous ways. Learning in secret, escaping at night, building hidden networks of survival. And others simply trying to endure another day in a system that defined them as property, not citizens, not people with rights, property. The nation moves toward collision. By the mid-1800s, it becomes harder to ignore the tension. The country is too large, too divided, too structurally split. Every attempt to keep balance feels temporary, like holding two opposing forces together with fragile thread. And everyone can feel it. Something is going to break, but no one agrees on when or how. At this stage in history, the United States is expanding rapidly westward. economically dependent on slavery in the South, industrializing in the North, and politically unstable under constant compromise. It's not peace, it's pressure. And pressure, eventually, demands release.